Another Friday night firing by the Trump administration. The State Department Inspector General was removed from his job Friday night, the White House says on the recommendation of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. As NBC News was the first to report this weekend, the IG, Steve Linick, was among other things looking into whether Secretary Mike Pompeo had a staffer running personal errands such as walking his dog, picking up dry cleaning, and making dinner reservations for him and his wife. This according to two congressional officials. Steve Linick is the fourth Inspector General to be removed from their position in just the past 2 months. Linick's job was to lead hundreds of employees investigating fraud and waste at the department. Speaker Pelosi says the issue now will be whether this involved unlawful retaliation against the IG by Pompeo. Congressional Democrats in both houses are investigating. On the Senate side, that investigation is being led by Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, the top Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee, who joins me now. Senator, welcome. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask you about this and what other issues might be involved, and whether or not you think it was retaliation by Mike Pompeo, at least from what we know so far, against this IG.
Well, it certainly seems so, Andrea. I read a comment that Secretary Pompeo made in an interview where he said, Inspector General Linick wasn't doing the job in the way we were trying to get him to do it. Well, the reality is that an Inspector General does the job as he sees fit to do it. Independence is the watchword of an Inspector General. It's not for the Secretary of a department to tell you how to do your job. And I read another comment by the Secretary that he was undermining some of the work. So, for example, I am deeply concerned that my understanding is that the Inspector General may very well have been on the verge of completing an investigation into emergency justifications for arms sales to Saudi Arabia. I opposed, as the ranking Democrat, 60,000 precision-guided missiles going to Saudi Arabia because of the way they were being used in the war in Yemen. And then we had 22 arms sales approved by the Secretary of State under some emergency provision for which there has been no legal justification for, and I can only assume it was to skirt congressional review. That would be a very serious issue beyond the ones that have been reported by yourself and others.
In addition to the Saudi arms sale, which I understand was something of the nature of $8 billion last May, and again without congressional oversight, which normally would be done, except for this emergency justification. So that is one of the things that he apparently was looking into, as you say, correct?
Yes. And, I think he was very close to coming to a conclusion on that. And I have been pressing, as the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, what is the legal justification for these emergencies? Because there was no emergency at the end of the day that could be justified for the arms sales. But circumventing the congressional role in the advising consent of arms sales to foreign nations was clearly the result of what the Secretary of State did. And so the fact that may very well be the case that the Department of State under Secretary Pompeo violated the law as it relates to these arms sales would be something obviously both he and the administration would not want to come to light.
Now, many of us are dog lovers. I have nothing against the beautiful white lab that apparently the Secretary and Mrs. Pompeo have. But what is the ethical guideline against staffers walking the dog or sending a staffer out to pick up dry cleaning or doing other personal errands? The Secretary is a very busy person. Is that okay? Is that something that the IG should or should not have been looking into?
Well, it is a lovely dog. And, look, I guess to some degree, there's always an element of some personal things being taken care of so that, in fact, the other, demanding issues that any secretary would have, certainly the Secretary of State, would be free to do so. But the question is to what degree, to what abuse, to what was the position of the person who was allegedly performing these personal functions. Those are some of the things. I mean, this is the most opaque Secretary of State I've dealt with in my 25 plus years of sitting on the House and Senate Foreign Relations Committee. There is no desire for congressional oversight. There is no real transparency. It is constantly a challenge to get vital information to make critical national security decisions by members of Congress. And so if you add this and the Saudi issue, and, I also had asked Inspector General Linick for some political retribution cases, which he did conclude those and issue one that was deeply disturbing. So there's a lot here that the Inspector General is obviously reviewing, and in the totality, it is an alarming set of circumstances.
There's only 27 days left before this becomes official. Is there any way that you could stop it?
Well, it's my hope that, in fact, Chairman Engel in the House has convening powers of the committee, has subpoena powers if necessary. I would believe that the opportunity to bring Inspector General Linick before the committee would be there, and it would be my hope that it would be done before the 30 days are up. That might be a catalyst to change course. It is also my effort to urge Chairman Risch on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to have a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing with the Inspector General in person and maybe other members of his staff to get to the heart of the matter. We need to know why an Inspector General who has been toughened 2 administrations and was already 3.5 years into this administration all of a sudden gets sacked on a Friday night, added to the 3 other IGs who have been sacked.
Thank you so much. We'll be following up, of course. Senator Menendez, good to see you. And that does it for this edition of Andrea Mitchell Reports. Thanks for joining us. Please be safe. Remember to follow us online on Facebook and on Twitter at Mitchell Reports. And Ari Melber picks up our coverage after this break.
You're watching MSNBC International.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.